Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Alicia.
Hi. So I am really excited today to introduce all of you to Kathy Owens. And I invited Kathy to be a part of today's breakout session because I believe she has a story that will resonate with so many of you that are listening. Like many of you, possibly Kathy has a journey of thinking of wanting to be healthy. Healthy is her goal. She, was eating right, cooking all her foods, eating low fat, doing all the home cooked meals, exercising. However, when those things that she was doing, they started to work against her body, actually. And instead of looking great and feeling great, things started to kind of take a downhill turn for Kathy. And she wasn't feeling good in her body. Her skin was reacting. She was having a lot of issues. And she, at the same time, wasn't getting the answers that she wanted as to the root cause of what was going on with her. Everything seemed to work, and now it wasn't working. And she didn't know what to do because she thought, like so many of you, she was eating healthy and doing the right things. And it was her journey where what she ended up doing to get to that root cause and using food as delicious medicine and connecting her diet to her body and her own individual triggers that really started to transform her experience. And I think that will resonate with you. And I also think what will be really inspiring for so many of you is that, if you're about to take a leap like this, and you really need to get to the crux of the issue, like you're maybe like where Kathy was, where so much was now going wrong, nothing was working, you were feeling awful, looking awful, your tummy was hurting, nothing was working, and you're ready to take that next big step, and it's a big step, and it's going to be a lot of work, which can deter us. The great thing about having this conversation with Kathy is also, you can she'll qualify for you what's involved. It's not just about, oh my God, it's so much work, the quantity of work, it's so much, but if we can qualify some of that work for you and what she did, then at least you kind of know what you're going to walk into with the amount of work, and you can prepare in your own way. So it's not as ambiguous as it needs to be, because it's already going to be unfamiliar. It was for Kathy. So this is and so Kathy, just so you know, before I'm going to give her the floor to share her journey. I've known Kathy for 15 years, probably at this point. She was a client. We met in my salon in Venice, and she was a client for all these years. And now, so many years later, she has, she's like a family member at this point. We've known each other for so long, but I always wanted her to share her story because she is an everyday person. Like many of you, she did not grow up doing these kind of things or have the support in her family of knowing this food is medicine. And she took it upon herself. She has a great story to share, and I think you guys will connect with it. And that's why I wanted Kathy to come on and share her story. So thanks so much, Kathy, for being here.
Of course.
Yay. So yeah, I'm just going to give you the floor. I want you to share your story of you told me about, in Westchester, you grew up on the East Coast in New York, in Westchester County, and you were doing all of these things, which you will get into, and kind of what started happening from there. So I'm just going to give you the floor.
Absolutely.
I think you froze. Do you hear me or see me?
And
Oh, there you are. We froze for a second, but maybe, okay. I don't know what happened, but yeah, go ahead.
All right, I'll restart. So since my 20s, I paid attention to food and exercise. And like many of us in our 20s, I thought I had it all figured out, knew what I was doing. I always cooked, and I believed I was eating healthy because I wasn't ordering out a lot and I wasn't eating out a lot. And I thought I was in control of being the best me with food at that point. I bought mostly low fat food, which was a big fad at that time, if you will, and believe that by buying this packaged food and cooking it from the package at home, that was the healthiest alternative I could ever have, and was living my best life. In my 20s and 30s, I did have bouts of psoriasis. And I would go to the dermatologist when it got inflamed, and they would always give me topical medicine, cortisone shots when it got a little bad, and basically told me there was no cure. So back then, I never connected psoriasis with my diet, and they never suggested that my psoriasis had anything to do with my food intake. So other than psoriasis, I'd never had any other health issues. Fast forward to 12 years ago, which I was 43 years old, I was gaining weight so quickly, and I couldn't figure it out because I wasn't doing anything differently. I basically was 25 pounds over my usual weight.
And you were still
Skin,
doing everything, the low fat cooking, what you exercising, that was your thing. Got it. Got it.
yeah, and I kind of got off the low fat thing over time. That was more in my 20s and 30s, but I just said, okay, just let me eat a well-balanced diet. So I wasn't eating cheese doodles. I was just, I was eating vegetables and carbs and cow milk and everything. I thought I was doing the right thing. Besides the 25-pound increase in weight, which is frustrating enough because you're doing everything right and you just keep gaining weight and it feels awful. My skin on my face was so inflamed. It was red, it was itchy, and my psoriasis on my body was also starting to pop out as well, but my face was significantly noticeable. I went to 3 dermatologists, and all of them told me it was rosacea. All of them told me that I would have to take a prescribed pill, and I could only take the medication and that would be the cure. I never believed in man-made medicine that would cure, outside of what I did take in my 20s, the topical and the cortisone shots when I was desperate. But I've always believed that Mother Nature would cure more than man-made. I was beyond frustrated. I'm heavy, I'm inflamed, I'm itchy. And what do? I walk into your salon and I share my frustrations with you. And I said, Alicia, I have no idea what to do. And you just brightened up and you went over and picked up a book and you gave it to me, and it was called The Plan. I've never heard about the plan, what it was, and it was an elimination. It was an elimination diet, if you will. No idea what. So you said, you know what? I think this is really going to help you. Why don't you take this home and read it? And that is where, after
Because you wanted solutions. You wanted a solution to the root of the problem. Yes.
yeah, yes, I didn't want a Band-Aid, and it was affecting me so much that I was out of control with my weight. I was out of control with my skin, and nobody was giving me answers. They basically were like, oh, well, take a pill, or you know what, you're at that age. And I was just, there was no way.
Yeah.
So basically, the book, The Plan. So what this book, The Plan, taught me was that we all have a different chemistry and we all have a different relationship with food. What my body likes, your body might not like. So cauliflower, oh, that could be fantastic for everybody. Might not agree with my system or my gut, it might agree with yours. And it just opened a whole new world of, oh my God, I thought I was doing everything right, but no. And also your gut changes over time and as you age. What you could handle in your 20s, you might not be able to handle in your 50s. So it taught me that my body wants certain things and my body does not want certain things. So I had to detox. It's not easy for everybody. It wasn't as hard for me, but some people get headaches when they're detoxing, and you're basically going to very, very friendly foods and trying to get the toxins out of your body. Because if you're eating the stuff that's not right for your body, and it gets inflamed and you gain weight, or you get psoriasis, or you get inflamed on your skin, or it could be all different types of reactions that people will get. My reaction was Go ahead.
So just to ask you on this, so people are clear. So when you had this book and you were going through it, the first step that you really had to go through was sort of like an elimination diet, like kind of everything you were eating, with the exception of maybe some foods. And this book helped you decipher which foods you could kind of keep around. But for most other things, you sort of just had to eliminate them. You
Absolutely.
had to do an elimination diet.
Yeah.
Okay. And then with that elimination diet, now what is that like? What was that experience like, eliminating and introducing? And as far as like the amount of work, were you cooking every day? Were you anything? Yeah. What was that kind of like?
Yes, you have to shop and cook carefully, and because you need to understand what your body wants, and you can't buy these type of on the shelf. You have to make them yourself. So in the beginning, I'm not going to lie, it was hard. It was frustrating. There were times when I would get really upset to the point where I would cry, but I didn't want to give up on it because I the other alternative, nothing else was working. So I'm not going to lie about that. You feel like oh, I can't do this and it's too much work. And then all of a sudden you turn a corner, and I started seeing literally my fat was melting off of my body, literally. My skin started to change. The blotches on my face started to go away. My psoriasis to this day, gone, completely gone. And what happened was it took a shift where I felt so good mentally, physically. I'm like, I can't stop this. This is the best thing since sliced bread, even though I can't eat regular sliced bread. But what I also did was I took a blood test for food sensitivity.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So, because that's really important too. And I think anyone with a skin condition should take a food sensitivity and an allergy test, like the IgG and the IgE, those two different tests. So yeah, so you took this and you found out, where did that bring you when you took this, you took these blood tests?
I was shocked. I was almost celiac. And I never bought into the gluten-free lifestyle. More so as an East Coaster, I'm like, oh God, they're making it up. They just want to sell stuff. And I cannot eat gluten. I just can't. White flour is, to me, it's the devil. And the way it's manufactured here in the US, it's awful. Cow milk, because of all the hormones in it, and my digestive, and a lot of people don't digest cow milk well because of the caseins. A lot of people shouldn't be having cow dairy.
Yeah.
I have a sister that I literally watched her eat cow cheese, and she was having an inflammation issue and literally puff up within 15 minutes after eating it. So it helped me discover, wow, these are things that I should avoid. But wait a minute, what are going to be my choices out there?
Yeah, good point. Because now what? You find out you can't have dairy or flour, all the things that you love, that you eat, that are part of your life. What other foods did you find out from the elimination? So that was from the testing, what you found out, but from the elimination diet and the plan, what other foods did you find out did not work with your body? And how do you find out? You weigh yourself, correct? Because
yes.
the stress, the inflammation in your body, that cortisol release creates even minutia. You need a digital scale, because you want to see if any weight was gained when you're testing certain foods that you're introducing, correct?
That's correct. So basically you eat, next morning you weigh yourself, and if you go up in weight, you look at what you had the previous day and say, oh, this was different that I introduced from my very plain beginning. So, I'm reacting to that.
And so you would have to maybe take it out again and reintroduce it. Yes. So this is like all the work that you were doing. Like this was, I would say, how long would you say the plan, this elimination, reintroducing, figuring out, going back and forth, before it stopped being a testing process for you? Now you just knew, now you cooked, now you ate, now you felt great. But for the part of it that was eliminating, putting back in, not knowing, unsure, trying, how much time would you say was allocated to that process?
At least a year.
At least a year.
At
That makes
least a
sense, right?
year.
Yes.
For anybody that's hearing this and they think, oh my God, that's long, it is not. And for what I've been eating this way, and I hate calling it a diet. It's just a
Yes, it's
lifestyle.
not. It is exactly. Thank you for making that point.
And I have to tell you that I've done this for over 10 years. It's the best gift I ever gave to myself. And it's not frustrating. It's fun. So yeah, now I have to use different flours. I use almond flour. I use coconut flour. I can have goat cheese, sheep cheese. There is so much out there today as an alternative, and it's so good. And it's just as good as the other food, and you don't feel weighed down. Once you figure out what your body likes, you're on another level. You have more clarity. I mean, I can't tell you how much this does for you. Whoever wants to put the time into it, it's a payback that I can't even begin to explain. I feel better. I'm living better.
You're living better. You're living.
Yes.
You're living, you're not struggling, right? And so
No.
what were some of those foods that you found out that you just couldn't eat? Apart from the dairy and the flour, what were just like some regular healthy foods that you were like, I can't eat that. It's inflammatory to my body.
Quinoa, which is supposed to
Ah.
be one of the healthiest grains out there. Peaches. If I ate a
Mm.
peach, I would gain 2 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. A peach.
Raw
Oh,
spinach. I can have cooked spinach, raw spinach.
can't
Couldn't
have
do
raw
that.
spinach.
Yep. Regular potatoes. No. Sweet potatoes. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Okay.
What else is there?
And what were some new, oh, go ahead. Go ahead. If you remember any off the top of your head.
That's
That-
okay.
That's amazing though. What about fish, like salmon, or like what people eat that's really healthy, like salmon or broccoli or anything like that aggravate you?
Yes, clams, salmon. Salmon's not that friendly. Raw salmon is, and it's also you have to farmed fish go away like
Yeah.
heck. Very toxic for your body, for anybody. Wild fish.
Was that one of the inflammatory foods that were you had to eliminate if you were eating that because it's
Yeah.
inflammatory in general for most people?
Yes.
The farmed fish
And pork. Pork
and
also. Mm-hmm.
interesting. So people that
Yeah.
are eating pork and farmed fish, if you're listening and this is part of your diet, it's from a general standing or thesis that that is an inflammatory food for most people.
Yes.
Maybe you just want to eliminate those and see what happens with your body. If you like, I eat fish all the time, I go out, I eat sushi, I think it's healthy. There are a lot of people that think that they're eating healthy because they're eating sushi. And
Mm-hmm.
I stopped eating sushi years ago. I love sushi, I love fish, but I don't eat really any fish because of just, that it's not, you just can't be that free thinking that this does not have an effect on your body of what's out there. But so that's really interesting. And then also, what were some foods that were new for you that you realized are beneficial for you, that you started eating in your life, that are like, oh, these foods balance me out and keep me at that nice synergy in my body? What were some of those new foods?
Well, the cheeses, I love cheese, and I was eating cow cheese, and I just can't, like buffalo, which is from the bison. That cheese I can eat, but I can't eat the cheese from the
So you
cow.
can have like buffalo mozzarella or something like
Yeah.
that. And any meats or any vegetables that you never really ate before, but you tested and they work for you and you eat those now?
All berries, which I've always eaten, but those feel good. Radishes. Let's see.
Never like a radish person before, but you were like, now you know. Oh, you were?
Oh, no, I wasn't one before. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't hear you. Yeah, so that was news. But and just making the different types of, I can make breads out of the almond and coconut flour, which is a game changer for
I remember
sure.
when you invited me over for those crackers. So for many of you, Kathy, I've been wanting her to share her story for so long because she put in this work and thrived because of it, like the food she was cooking. She invited me over once. She had these, I think it was like 2 ingredient crackers, like almond flour with something, and these cookies that were gluten-free that were the most delicious things ever. And I'm like, you need to share your story because you've excelled so much in, just changing everything about your life, and then also learning how to cook with these ingredients that are new ingredients.
Mhm.
You also mentioned when we spoke, Kathy, that the importance, well, you mentioned two things, but the one thing I want to touch on now is the importance of community during going through this really extreme year-long eliminate, put back, eliminate, weigh yourself, put back, try this, don't eat this, you can't do this, really kind of limited, right? Was it limited for that first year?
Yes.
It was limited for the first year. You did feel that limitation, whereas now you don't, because you know what you love and you can eat and you don't feel deprived. So tell us how important community and having people around you to support you during this process was for your success, and how you feel if you didn't have that community, how you think that would have affected your outcome.
It's huge, and it's pretty much everything, because not everybody will do this, because it does take a lot of work. And when you find the community that, because it was hard for me to go places to eat, because if I was with friends or if I was at any events, there was a lot of stuff I couldn't eat, because there's a lot of crap out there, even though they say it's healthy. And people would be like, oh, look at you, in the butt, we don't want to eat with you. And they're not in charge of me, I am. And this community taught me, I get that as well, but don't give up. And always bring your friendly stuff with you. If you don't, check out the restaurant if you want to eat, make sure that's friendly for you. But we supported each other with, sometimes we gained weight because there were foods and we felt like we put all the work, and it was like, no, keep going, it's worth it. Or I feel similar with feeling better, amount of time, or here's some recipes to share. And it's more or less, don't give up and just keep pushing, because this will work to your benefit. And when you do get to those frustrating times, to find a community that eats the same way and thinks the same way, it is tremendous help. It really is. And they can share also information that you don't know about. Oh, I just found out about this place to get, clean meat, or this is a recipe to share that worked for me. If you can eat A, B, and C, go ahead. So it was tremendous help, because there's a lot of people out there that they might not want to do it or have the mind frame to do it. And it teaches you to not give up. And it paid off for all of us, all of us. And
Yeah.
I'm not shy to say I'm 55. I I did when I was 30, by far. But I have
Amazing.
many, many people in this community that, and age isn't, I'm just sharing because I don't care about age. It's not going to stop. But
Just to put some kind of weight on what you're saying, just to, qualify it to some degree. Yes.
and a lot of us are at this age, and we're like, we feel so much better, and we can do what we want. We don't have limitations. And I think we all want to live long, but we want to live well.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I'll tell you one thing, and if I ever go into a office, if I'm like helping out a friend, come with me, or a family, and you see the people in the doctor's office, that just solidifies that this is the right thing to do for everybody, because
What do you mean by that? Like, break
food
that down,
skills.
because the visual, what you're seeing,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
comes to what does that feel like?
It doesn't look like there's a quality of life. People literally look sick. They look sick. They look energyless, and when they were in the doctor's office, I don't know everybody's story. That's their personal business, but uh, they just tired, washed out, just lifeless kind of. And it's sad. It's
And you
sad.
believe it doesn't have to be this way if you really let diet, and I'm not putting these words in her mouth, you guys, but I wanted her on the breakout session because this is Eat Your Way to Gorgeous. And I am talking to people that really get and understand the power of using food as delicious medicine. It's not like you have to like hold your nose and eat your sandwich because it tastes so awful. Like, it's delicious, but it can take some time, like what Kathy said. And she believes that you don't have to live that way. Is that what you're saying when you see that? Like it doesn't.
Absolutely not. So that just brought up a good story I just thought of. So one of the eating community was on heart medication her whole life. And she went on this elimination diet and figured out what worked for her. So she went to her cardiovascular doctor and cardiologist, sorry. And I want to get off the medicine. He said to her, no way. If you get off this medicine, you will die. And I am not going to be held responsible if you do that. Well, you know what? She felt so good. She weaned herself off the medication. She herself with her blood pressure and everything else, and everything was spectacular. And she went back to him 4 months later and she just said, I just want you to take a look at me now. And by the way, I'm no longer using you. And she's like no medication today.
Wow.
I'm not a doctor. I can't
So you're just giving examples of observation of another side of it that we don't see, because no one really allows us to see this other side because we're so ingrained and there's only one way to do something. So I would think that the people that are watching you guys aren't taking Kathy and saying to go off your heart medication, but it is important to say that. But yes, I think that's important. To share that, so yeah, we can have a peek into what you can expect, how your life can change for you, what doors can open up for you, how you can feel better. You said sleep better. Can I ask you about menopause? Because you're 55. Like, what do you have? Hot flashes? Do you have symptoms? Do you think that your symptoms would be or softer and more cushions because of how you eat, or you don't know because you don't know what it could have been? But do you have any thoughts about that, being at our age in our 50s?
I do get hot flashes once in a while, probably when I have wine. So that's what I attribute it to, but I know what to expect. But overall, I don't feel like I'm having crazy hormone issues, or I'm in menopause and I think I'm fine. So
You feel healthy and you feel vibrant.
I can guess that I'm doing much better this way because my body's happy.
Yeah.
My organs are happy.
Yes, exactly. You have a
When
nice balance.
if they're fighting just food and digestion, they can't do what they want to, because your body wants to heal itself. It just does.
Yes.
But it does take time. So that's why they give pills today, because people want a quick fix. Everybody wants a quick fix, but that never works. I mean, do you ever hear the commercial? This could cause blah, blah, blah. Oh, and it could cause death, but take the pill anyway.
And I will say, you guys, when I knew Kathy, her skin, her face was bright red all over her face. She was always like that, red, not just like a little inflamed. She was on fire, her skin, for some time when we were talking and trying to, but it took time even from when you met me to the plan, because we would have little chats in between. Someone who's experiencing this, it's like not always, you kind of have to like approach that person lightly because they've heard it all, or they're not getting the results they want. They don't want to hear from you even necessarily. It's like you got to build that trust a little bit. And thankfully we had it where eventually, because you were coming into my salon, that we were able to help you with that, because I remember that very, very much, just how red your skin all over.
I know you would almost cry for me sometimes. I would come in and you'd be like, oh, that poor face.
I know, I'd want to just be like, oh, put hydrosols on it. But some things at that point, you guys, don't work. A facial with me or spritzing some hydrosols don't work. There is something severely going on inside that is throwing everything off. For you to have a symptom like that, that is not a cosmetic fix or an aesthetic treatment. Okay, we got to get down to the nitty gritty with something like that. And I introduced you to the plan because it was a little out of my scope at that time. I wasn't in that research or in that study, but I knew that Lynn was, and that she had been helping so many people with all of her case studies over the years with her clients. So, and I wanted to help you. The other thing you mentioned when we spoke last time was how when you were weighing yourself all the time and you weren't losing weight and that was becoming so frustrating, you realized, I'm totally ignoring or not even paying attention to the fact that, or aware of the fact of how good I'm feeling. You were feeling really good, but you weren't losing the weight, and you were like, why am I losing weight? But it's like, there's like a process, right? Like, you might
Yes.
be feeling better first before the weight comes off. It's kind of like when your skin is inflamed. First, we got to get the inflammation down before we can go in and do something topically, if it is a topical solution that I'm doing, right? I can't go into inflamed skin and be like, let's do this. There has to be a process. Get the inflammation down first, then we can target maybe the scarring, or we can target the whatever's going on. So what you realized was, the weight loss isn't the first thing necessarily for you that went, but that's where you were focused. Share a little bit about that and that kind of awakening that you had about
So
the.
that my focus was way too much on the scale, way too much on the scale. So what I would do is if 0.2 in one day, I was just like, oh, I was beside myself. And that's when I would get really upset to the point of crying, because I'm like, I'm putting so much work into it. I had to shift my focus that this is a job. And once I took it off of just that 0.2 here and the 0.4 there, I had to learn that this is a process. My body's healing, and going through the healing process, it does go up and down. So when I had gluten back then, for me to really get it out of my body, took over a month for it to process out of my body. It's a process. And I'll tell you one thing, once you learn that, and once you get your gut to a big, great healing place, run into the point where you have stuff that doesn't agree with your body. Sometimes you can bring it back because your gut's so healthy, or you can have it once in a while and you won't react.
Yeah, you
So
go into that.
that's a,
So yeah, that's interesting. I tell my clients that with their skin, when we build that surface immunity.
yep.
Now, like if you forget to do your routine one day without layering and you're out there and it's snowing and it's a blizzard and the elements are, or it's like really hot, you might not be as affected because you've been doing so well all this time and building up and building up and building up that surface barrier, that the one day you forget to put your cream on, you're still soft and supple and not affected possibly. Yes.
And
Or
there's
if you
also,
get a little something, it goes away really quickly. Yes.
and there's so many places to get different good foods now too. So many
Where
places.
do you shop? Let's kind of get into that a little bit. I know we're going a little bit over, so we kind of, let's talk about, so you're cooking all your yummy foods. You know what were some of the foods now that you are eating? You said that you introduced. What were some of those?
So mostly the crusts and the breads that I've made through the different
Oh,
flours.
got it. Okay, okay. But what
Just
about like meats or like anything that were that you didn't eat before that now you're like it's you eat this instead? What meats are you eating?
like lamb. I never had lamb chops before. I have great lamb chops, grass fed, grass finished, of course. Bison, for fantastic. Duck breast. Oh, I love duck breast now.
So these are things you found out did not aggravate you. And how do you deal with not deal with, how do you justify the expense of this lifestyle? Because it's not cheap. Life is expensive now. Buying grass-fed lamb or duck breast is expensive. So how does this work into, we're all working people. I know you are, you know what I mean? You are a working woman. We're not just like, money's falling from the tree for us. So how are you able to, what do you forego to have food, or do you kind of think of it that way? Is it a priority kind of a thing? How does that work for you? How do you budget
Well,
for that?
honestly, we don't need our meals to be so large. So when you're eating good food, it's satiating.
Good point.
I don't need to buy a pound of meat for myself. So if I'm eating a meal, I'll look for a sale, obviously, at the local butcher, Whole Foods. There's a co-op locally, which is local food, but farmers market is my number one go-to. We're lucky enough with where we live that we can get some of the best product. And to be honest with you, the farmers market here is cheaper than the stores
Yeah, that's
are.
true. That's
Yeah.
true.
And then when Whole Foods has their sale and you take the extra 10% off a Prime, it comes out pretty good. Thrive Market is a
I
great place.
love Thrive Market.
Yeah,
Yes, that's a
yeah,
great one. Yeah, because you pay a membership for Thrive and people do that with Costco. So it's like try Thrive. You save so much money.
yeah. And
And
I
I
always
like that point about eating. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
look for coupons too. Like with Thrive, they'll send out 25% coupons, or, look on your Whole Food sale, or, I always look, if I like a certain product or a certain meat, or I know I like a certain brand, I'll always just put into the internet, sale on, and I put in
That's a good
product.
trick. That's a good trick. I do that too. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. If you like a certain supplement brand or a certain like packaged food that you know is healthy and good, yeah, definitely, definitely.
And you know what? Costco with their wild fish, you can get good wild fish there. And yes, they're quantities. So they have like sea bass, which agrees with me, and it'll be a bigger piece, but I can cut that in half or in quarters and freeze the rest. I'm
That's
getting 4 meals out of that.
okay.
Again,
Now,
you
I
don't.
like that what you said about that, the portions and eating so much. And your plate, would you say your plate is more animal protein and less plant-based, or more plant grain and then just a little piece of your meat when you have
Yeah,
it?
your protein's small. You don't need a lot. You
Yes,
definitely don't need a lot.
and
But
I asked that question for a reason because I know people here, it's like you're eating this big giant piece of meat that costs you $15 and that's one meal.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
you could buy a huge bone-in steak and you can make some amazing meals from that. Like this is how we afford eating less meat is how you afford this lifestyle. And for me, you know what I do? And I've told my clients this, certain things that cost a good amount of money, I'm thinking like notebooks and tape and Advil and things at the drugstore, things at Staples, things like that. You go to the 99-cent store for that stuff. And that way, that's how you have money for what you need your money to be. You could save 20 bucks in the dollar store buying Scotch tape, poster board, markers, highlighters, Post-its, all these things that we spend money on, which is fine if you can afford both. But if you're looking for ways to afford to eat healthy, it's like, don't buy stuff like that in
Mhm.
Staples. Don't
Yes.
go, you don't buy stuff like that in Rite Aid when you can get Advil and extra strength Tylenol in the dollar store. And
Mhm.
that money can now go to your food that you're saving. If you're really trying to use your little gray brain cells up here of like, where can I finagle because the food is important and the food is expensive.
Yes.
It
Yes.
is expensive.
Mhm.
Very good. I love that. I love that so much. I'm so, grateful to have you share your story with everyone. Are there any other final thoughts or messages that you want to share with anyone that might be listening? That's like, is there, I don't know.
Just
Might think,
it's worth it. It's worth, this is the biggest gift you can give to yourself, because nothing else is going to give you this kind of health if you don't have your health, and if you don't have optimal health, you know nothing compares to that. There was a biggest return on investment on this for just investing in myself and taking the time. And it's, you're going to feel frustrated. It's not always going to be, sunny and roses out, but in the end, it really, it's worth the work. I can't express that enough. And I've seen it again and again and again with people that have done this for themselves. It's always come out on the good end
yeah,
for their lives. It's just, I can't put a price on it.
yeah, 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 yeah.
No pill that's going to give it to you. There's no package that's going to give it to you. It's basically, this is your, you need to make
Self-ownership. It's self-ownership and you just have to own it,
and
finish
there,
it,
and
do
there
it.
are people that know that they could feel this good. That's another thing. So people that currently don't know if they're eating optimally for themselves or not should look into it, because there were plenty of people that were fine with where they were. And then they went through this type of work and they're like, oh my God, I knew I could have this much energy. I never knew I could eat this food that tastes so good. And it could make me feel fantastic. It's just, there's so
Yeah.
many benefits, so many
What's
benefits.
on those nights, Kathy, where you just really don't want to cook? You're just like, I just don't want to. I want to just have someone give me some food. And what do you do on those nights? Have your
On
go-to packaged foods or any go-to takeout places or any, because we all are going to have those. What do you do? Because the
uh,
plan is so specific.
I find certain brands of box stuff that I could eat, like Simple Mills. They're
Mm.
wonderful because they're, almond flour based. Um, I'll always have, I don't know. You got me on the spot on this one.
That's okay.
So
Or
going
do
to,
you sometimes just eat, like you said, sometimes you can just eat certain things and you might have a flare up or you might not. It might be one of those nights where you're just out and you just want that and you're going to eat that.
yeah. So
Have
yeah, I
those
will.
nights?
I'll have a slice of pizza.
Yeah,
It,
we're not
that's,
perfect, right? We're
yeah.
going to have those like,
Absolutely. And you know what? And it's okay because I'm not like, oh God, like let me get like 5 pizzas next week and, just eat like this for a month or two.
because your
No.
cravings have probably changed too, I'm sure.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
obvious. I mean, when you start doing this work and what Eat Your Way to Gorgeous for all of you, one of the benefits of taking this class and doing this kind of work is that your cravings, you will have healthier cravings. You're not going to crave that kind of food anymore, the food that's been putting you in a bad way. Um,
Mhm.
so okay, well, thank you so much, Kathy, for sharing so much of your journey. And how long has it been now? When did you start this journey?
About 10 years ago.
Hey, wow. So
Yeah.
a decade of looking great, feeling great, healthy skin, no flare-ups. Thank you so much for sharing your story, Kathy.
You're welcome, but I do hold you responsible for getting me on this journey because it started with you. And
Oh, well,
so
I'm
much for that.
I'm grateful that the plan isn't for everyone because it is an enormous amount of work, but it's definitely for you, I believe, when you are the pathology, your body, it is an overflow. The disease, the symptoms are really have taken control of your life.
Mhm.
Basically, when you are at that point, this unfortunately, you really do have to like really rein it in. It's either sink or swim at that point. You could be at that point and go to the doctor, like you're saying, and sit in the doctor's office and be there every week or every 2 weeks,
Mm.
going to the doctor, got to go to the doctor, got to get this, that becomes your conversation all the time, like about your doctor visits. There are people that just talk about going to the doctor all the time. I don't know if that happens to you guys. I don't know if you notice that, but like as we get older, I feel like some of my friends, like that's what they talk about a lot,
Yes.
like their doctor visits.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I highly suggest the plan for anyone that is experiencing symptoms that are keeping them from looking and feeling just good. Like
Mhm.
forget great. If you're feeling not good at all and it's been a long time, and you're showing it on your body and you're feeling it, it's time to do what you had to do.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, so thank you so much, Kathy. I really
Very
appreciate
welcome.
having you here.
Thank you for
Stick around for 1 second. We can say goodbye to everyone. I hope you enjoyed your breakout session, and yeah, have a great day and go ahead and click on the next one. And thanks for being here on the Eat Your Way to Gorgeous journey. Have a great one. Hi, Amber.
Hi.
Hi, hello everyone. I am so excited for you to be here today for this breakout session with Amber Marin, who is a holistic nutritionist, is certified in holistic nutrition from Bowman College. Amber has an amazing story as far as her education. She went to school and studied zoology and got her master's in animal behavior therapy. But her passion led to healthy eating and food and nutrition, and went on to Bowman College to get her certification in holistic nutrition because she found that's really where she saw she could share her purpose. And I wanted to bring her in today because I want to have her on these breakout sessions today because she sees an array of clients from different kind of walks of life and she has to kind of meet people where they are and offer her guidance. And she has some amazing tools in her toolbox that I want her to talk about today. We touched on some of them earlier, how to eat is a big thing for Amber. Consistency being like the pathway to success, is really important. Quality, taking small steps, your drug interactions, why you're maybe not losing weight or are still so tired, these things, and you're eating and you're doing all of these things. So I really want Amber to touch on that, and share with us a little bit about how she approaches her clients and what are their pain points. Amber, why don't we start there? Like, what are people, for the most part, are you seeing they're coming in for? They're suffering and they're struggling, and are they doing all the things to be healthier? They think they are, rather they think they're doing all the things. Is it a little mix of each? And then let's start there.
Okay, thanks. Hi. I feel like I see a pretty wide array of people coming in for a variety of different reasons, and starting from different points along their eating and health journey. But if I had to clump it all together, I would say there's sort of a subset of people who have a specific health issue or issues that have been diagnosed. Maybe they're on medication to try to treat, or maybe they want to try to taper off the medication or not take medication for very specific reasons, like high blood pressure, or they're pre-diabetic or diabetic, or maybe they have IBS or some sort of digestive symptoms. And then there's another group of people that are just feeling unwell, generally overweight or wanting to lose weight, maintain a healthy weight, aging, sluggish, tired, fatigue, those sort of things that might not have an official diagnosis from a doctor, but they just know they feeling as good as they want to, or as well as they should.
And why are they coming to you?
That's
No, seriously, like why?
Yeah. So a lot of people just find me by Googling like nutritionist near me, right? There's definitely some word of mouth out. Generally, I think there's this sort of feeling right now, I hope, that people have a little bit of control over how we feel, right? Like we can be a little bit more empowered to change our lifestyle to affect how we feel. And I think most of us know that that's a thing we can do, but how do we do it, right? So like, yes, I know I should A, B, and C, but I think they're coming to me to get a little bit of accountability, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody to like continue to say, hey, this is what I'm gonna do. How did it go? And guidance, right? So they know like kind of generally, maybe they've done some reading on what foods are healthy or antioxidants or anti-inflammatories or sort of those buzzwords. They're aware that that's out there, but there's also a lot of nutrition information out there. So I think when people start digging and trying to learn more, it can be overwhelming, it can be confusing. So then I think some of them come to me for that. And some of them, every once in a while, they're recommended to go see a nutritionist. Sometimes, their insurance pays for one of the hospitals. Sometimes, again, if there's just sort of not feeling well, it's not a specific diagnosis. It's really just, I think that I get a lot of people that say, I eat healthy, and then when deeper, it's what's healthy for them, right?
What do they think? What are some of like what people think are healthy? That I'm sure my audience here can relate to that, because I'm sure many of you guys watching are like, I eat healthy, I'm still overweight, I'm still so tired, my body still hurts, I still have arthritis. So what, and they're eating possibly the salmon and the broccoli and all the healthy foods too. What are some of the ones that do say they're eating healthy? Because I know you have a few that are just like, I'm just going to eat this way and it's not healthy. And how can you help me? Right. But the ones that are eating healthy, what are some of the common healthy foods that they're seeing that you see are not really benefiting them or getting in their way?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of the times it's what they are eating along with the healthy foods. So yes, like salmon or broccoli or like vegetables in general, but also maybe they're eating like deli sandwiches or something like that that have the like the cured meat, or maybe like the big fluffy white bread French rolls or something like that. Or let's see, let me think of another
They're eating
example.
like a turkey sandwich,
Right. I mean, I've
like
had
boar's
people
head turkey on like this commercial bread that has all
exactly.
these, you know, the
Or
bread softeners and the sugar and the sodiums and the other industrial chemicals to keep it
yes.
with
And
this.
not to single out any one place, but like I have, you know, clients that go to Subway because they think sandwiches are healthy, right? And just like you're saying, that bread is full of
Chemical,
chemicals
actual
and
noxious chemicals. Yes, got it, got it. So that's a good one. And so about like what's healthy, because that does make sense. What is anything else that's like healthy that they think is healthy that they're eating?
there's a lot of dairy, I think, misinformation out there.
That dairy is or is not healthy?
So it's we're all individuals, right? And I want to say like some people are going to react certain ways to certain foods, so it might be healthy or unhealthy for them. But if we're trying to kind of generalize,
No, I'm just, yeah, I'm asking generally. So when
yeah,
you say dairy, do you
for the
get people
most
that think
part,
it's
I
healthy?
recommend, yeah, that most people stay away from a lot of dairy,
They stay
right?
away from the dairy. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So
Okay.
yeah, so a lot of people think that, you know, not that they think cheese are a health food, but when you start asking people to like keep a diet journal eating and they're snacking on string cheese or you know, I there's a lot more dairy in the diet, I think, sometimes than people realize. And I've
They're
found,
like, I don't eat dairy, but then when you look into their little
yeah,
journal, they're like munching. Yeah, what are some other snack foods that are cheese? It's like string cheese. I see people do a lot of that string cheese because they're packaged and you can just
yeah, or like the Baby Bell cheeses, those
baby
things.
bell cheeses.
Mhm.
That's something
And
too.
I'm generally
Or
a fan.
yogurt, maybe little yogurt packs.
Yeah, right. And a really good example. Like yogurt has good beneficial healthy probiotics and good bacteria, right? But if you aren't being really discerning about the kind of yogurt you get and reading the ingredients, a lot of yogurt has tons of sugar.
Yeah.
So just sort of helping
They
people
have all that sugar from the lactose. I just tell people just eat plain fat, full fat yogurt. Just
yeah, yeah. I love coconut milk yogurt, but
oh
that's
nice.
just an option for people if they want to
Yeah.
kind of veer off the dairy but still get the yogurt. Yeah, so just like I'm finding little tweaks in people's diets like that can be a good start, right? It's not
Oh
always enough,
nice.
but yeah, figuring out like, okay, so here's what you like to eat. I always ask people, you know, to keep like a couple of days of a diet journal, so we can figure out how they're normally eating, meet them where they are, like you said, and then depending on what their goals are and what they're willing to make to change, whether it's small tweaks or totally changing things. I find that changing things in small increments is generally more successful than like a total 180 of the way that you're living, right? That's going to sustain.
Yes. So speaking of that, like how you kind of your approach, you mentioned you have some tools in your toolbox and some kind of um not deal breakers, but things, what's the flip side of a deal breaker? It's like the must do's, sort of must notables that you make sure to include in your conversation with your clients. How to eat was something that you talked about eating a lot of the same foods. Let's talk about some of these. I'll throw them at you and then you can kind of go with it. So you talked a lot about like eating, you see clients that eat a lot of like the same thing,
Mhm.
and that how that could be an issue, like how to eat. You talked about consistency, and having success. If you want success, there's this level of consistency that you always have to bring to the table and let people be aware of this, like this is a core value if you want to have these results. Knowing your physiology, at least a basic understanding of how your body works, how does insulin, how is all of this working from your pancreas to your blood to all of this to create diabetes or to prevent diabetes or to protect your gut lining. You find that that is another tool to really help people connect. And then educating people on their drug interactions, which I'm excited to hear more about from you. And then the quality over quantity. So I'll just give you the floor on some of those touchstones,
Okay.
touch marks, touch tones, touchstones.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
I think like if I'm thinking about how I, begin my consultations with somebody, like I said, we get a snapshot of how they're eating, and I know whatever health issues they might be up against or challenges that they're facing and where they want to be, like, right? So what is your goal? And then we kind of just work from there. And like I said, it's slow, and consistency part is huge. Like I always tell people, it's what you do most of the time that matters, which also I'm hoping helps relieve them of the like trying to be perfect, right?
Yes.
There's no way that anybody is going to eat. There is no perfect all of the time.
Yes.
There's going to be celebrations, and there's going to be birthdays, and there's going to be bad moods and whatever. Like, but we need to, I think, give ourselves some wiggle room within reason, right? If you're absolutely deathly allergic to almonds, please don't eat almonds. But if it's, if you
have the margarita, have the cake at the time.
yeah,
Yes.
believe me, I eat a lot of chocolate, like,
Yes.
but it's what you do most of the time. So if I'm still getting, so yes, if we're thinking about like the tenants, right? So consistency is key, what you're doing most of the hours, and then you're a little bit off the hook for the occasional splurge, things that might not be super nourishing for you, but give you joy and make you feel good, because that's important too, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that like food is only fuel and that's it. It's joy, and it is community, and it is connection to your heritage, and all of those important things play into it. So I think that that's important for people to recognize, because sometimes they come from a place of like really like sort of fear and scared about what to eat. And I think some job is like just allowing them to like calm down and like have their relationship with food turn into a bit more of one of like positive rather than like I'm afraid to eat either because they'll gain weight or it will hurt them, right? So a little bit more like food freedom, or like I'd say wiggle room all the time, right? I think is important. But then giving them also the foundation of like you're talking about the anatomy and the physiology. I mean, I really do think of food as medicine. And so depending on what health issues they're dealing with, I always try to give people a little bit of, sort of like biology 101, what's happening in your body. So like if you're talking about insulin, like what happens when you eat high glycemic foods, right? The body spikes, there's more sugar in your blood, has to spike to move the sugar into the cells. So that process, I think, just, at a pretty simple level that people can understand is important. So then they then know, okay, that's why she's recommending that I don't eat white bread anymore. Or that's why she's recommending that when I have my Ezekiel sprouted bread, I have it with some almond butter or avocado. So there's some healthy fat and protein to go along with it, so that they understand just kind of the basics of how food affects them at a cellular level, because it does, right? We absolutely are what we eat.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a big part of kind of where I start, right? Of just like nutrition 101, your macronutrients, your micronutrients, what those things are doing in your body. And then knowing that kind of builds your foundation. These are the things you want to have. You need to have all the colors of the rainbow, and you need to, get your clean protein and your good fat, your lots of fiber, lots of water. But then beyond that, also giving yourself, a little bit of freedom that okay, this isn't a diet I have to adhere to 1,000% for the rest of my life. Once I kind of get these building blocks, and this is the way I eat most of the time, then I can find a little bit more freedom within that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And then on that point that I think the physiology and that anatomy, I just think that's really important, because I think like we all know blood, right? Like our blood, we're like blood. I know what blood is, blood. We need it. It's in our body. But our food, what we're eating, whether it's fake food or real food, or you want to call it good food or bad food, however people want to label it in their own head, that's what's making up your blood. Like that's what your blood is. Like that blood, your food is that. So, and if you already know that blood is like your lifeline for a life, like your heartbeat and the air you breathe, then if you can connect, like, really, my nutrients are in my blood, right? Like that's pretty, I think, can be powerful. And I think what you're doing with your clients and bringing that awareness, because it's like ding, ding, ding. They're just these little light bulbs go off. What have you seen with, so talk about the drug interactions. Like, what are some of the common pain points of your clients that you see come in, and how they're not having results, maybe because of the pharmaceuticals they're on and they had no idea, or they just, how are you enlightening them there?
To be honest, I've learned as I've gone, right? Like this wasn't necessarily part of my training, aside from like medications can affect how you feel in a couple sort of vague ways. But I think it's really important, if you are on a prescription, to, unfortunately, you're going to have to do a little bit of your own research, find out what the possible side effects are. That doesn't mean that they'll affect everybody, and it certainly doesn't affect everyone the same way.
But if you're having an issue, it might be like, if you can't lose weight ever, you're doing everything, and you see that one of your drug side effects.
It's something that I like go back to, because I get like the intake initially. And then, if somebody is stuck and they're like doing all of the things and it's still not working, a lot of medications affect our metabolism. They affect our sleep, right? And sleep is so hugely important over our health. And it's going to sleep will affect your appetite the next day. So if your body is tired, it's going to try to raise that blood sugar. You're going to have cravings. You're trying to get energy, right? So if your medication is affecting your sleep, and then your sleep, your metabolism, and your appetite, it will be challenging. It can make things a little bit trickier, because we can't all just never take our medication. I'm not suggesting that. But
someone to tell us this, because your doctor might tell you like, okay, but it's like, it's not, we don't think of it. We're not thinking of that when we're getting acne all of a sudden, or like having a skin complete flare up. Like that could be the medication you're on. Like, let's look at your medication. Like, what were you telling me about birth control? What are some of the
nutrients that get depleted from certain medications? So birth control depletes some of the B vitamins, I think B6, and probably others, because it affects how your body is taking in food, breaking it down, absorbing it, and reusing it. And so it can deplete certain nutrients. So sometimes it's just a matter of, okay, you're going to be on this medication, and why don't you also take this vitamin so that you can balance it out if you know you're depleted, or just continue to get tested to see if your numbers are low. But a lot of going to suggest that you really have to, unfortunately, advocate for yourself and know these things, and then ask about it.
And that's why I'm doing this class. I want you guys here, so who's ever watching, and they can spread this information, like, what you're advocating for yourself for. Because if you don't know what to ask, or like, then you're sort of just really vulnerable to whatever they tell you, if they even give you 2 minutes of their time to have a little chat with your doctor after your physical,
The other thing I will just real quickly say about medication is that, and you're very familiar with this, right? Like, has to detoxify any sort of medications or any toxins, foreign substances. So if you're taking medication, another option, again, this is a general statement, not everybody does the exact same thing, but just liver supportive foods and herbs, and things like that, as your liver is processing those medications, it has a little extra support, right? Or not drinking with your medication. This is huge. Everybody knows, right? Oh, I'm not supposed to drink with this. There's a reason. Like, it's really going to tax.
Can you not drink with most medications?
I don't know about most, but there's a lot.
And people are like the antidepressants and the sleep ones. I can't imagine you can drink with a sleep med or an antidepressant.
I don't think so. There's so many different antidepressants now. I'm not sure if they're all like that, but also keep in mind that going to affect both sleep and mood. So two reasons to not do it.
Yes.
It's just our bodies. I think that we tend to like kind of beat our bodies up without realizing it, right? And it's just modern life. It's the drinking and the smoking and staying up late and not sleeping and eating on the go and all of these things. And I always try to remind people, like, your body is working for you. Your body wants to stay alive. It is doing its best. we have to then nourish our body back, right? And give it the nutrients it needs and give it the needs and all of those things so that your body can do its job. I think we, in our big brains, kind of like get in our own way sometimes.
And maybe overcomplicate some of it.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we overcomplicate it. Yeah, I think, a lot of what we do, and not to diminish our experience and knowledge, but a lot of it's common sense and a lot of same with the skincare. It's like when you read that label, when you look at all that on that label, like ding, 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 but it's perspective too. And it's not to say that people aren't, but if we can say to ourselves, wow, she said it's like common sense, maybe that'll help people to just not complicate it so much. Just don't complicate it so much. We like food, we know by how we're feeling. Like if this is working, I think there's an intuition that's involved that once we start tapping into that more, then it is easier to not complicate it so much. And again, we don't mean to complicate it. These experts and everyone out here is complicating it. There's a lot of like, there's so much being thrown at people, which is why I kind of am, one of the reasons I'm doing this class. My big thing are all the additives in the food. And really, getting people to understand, what they're not eating, what's missing from their diet, all the amino acids and fiber and all these nutrients and all this other stuff that they're eating in their packaged food that's really taking away from them. So, but yeah, so that's amazing with the, just like enlightening people to the drug interactions and how they're feeling. And if you are at a point where you're at this stuck place, then we need to look at that. We need to see what's going on. And like you said, what do you recommend? And again, everyone here, don't just dive on Amber's advice and start drinking a tea, especially if you feel like you need to talk to a practitioner about that first, because anything that's natural and plant-based still has power. So, but I'm going to ask Amber this question anyway, and it doesn't mean that you're going to go buy this tea and start drinking it in gallons. And, we're not going to do that. But what would you say is like a really even keeled, accessible tea for the liver that's easy to find?
There's lots of
supportive, like
that's a good one. There's lots of liver blends. If you go that route, I like that. Like, can I throw out brands? I'm not like sponsored or anything, but traditional medicinals.
I love them.
Yeah, they're they'll make a blend and it's going to have a couple different herbs in there, and it'll say like liver supporter, like that. There's a yogi tea that's okay, but specifically milk thistle is really great for the liver. I'm sure you're familiar with that. That's probably going to be in most of those liver tea blends. You can also get a supplement if you wanted. There's burdock root, there's bitters. This isn't a tea necessarily, but the liver loves bitter foods, right? I don't know that the Ayurvedic perspective is
it's the same. Well, Ayurvedic medicines are bitter.
Yeah, right. So like broccoli raw, lemon balm, and the cruciferous vegetables. Again, this isn't a tea, I'm just going off. But like broccoli and cauliflower and Brussels sprouts, all of those super nutrient dense foods have sulfur. And that's a really good nutrient for the liver. So if you can get like a cup of those, that's great, along with your liver supportive tea.
And do you think everyone that's on medication, generally speaking, again, everyone here that's on like a pharmaceutical, should have in their lifestyle, like sipping on one of these traditional medicinal teas every now and again, or like
Sure. I don't think there's anything in there that's going to counteract the effects of their medication, right? Like grapefruit, we all know like that can change a lot of medication. If you're concerned, double check, but they should.
It should complement.
To my knowledge, there's no complication. It's just going to add extra support.
Oh, nice. Okay. That's something that's good to know if you're like on it.
Even if you're taking like Advil or aspirin or something like that, a lot of people I'm finding take on a fairly regular basis because their joints hurt or they have a headache or they're in pain or something like that. That's extra stuff your liver has to filter through.
That's a good
So,
point.
yeah. And those have other effects, like on the gut lining and things.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too like specific in terms of,
Yeah,
like
no, but
this
that's
if
good
you're
to
doing
know.
that.
Because
It's
all of
good.
these things can affect how we're feeling.
Absolutely.
Oh,
And it's good if you are working with somebody just to tell them, right? Like if they're
yes,
working with you, just let you know. If they're working with, just throw it out on the table, because all of these things make a difference and
yes,
impact our bodies.
yes. And then you also talked about quality, like having quality foods and also taking small steps in your journey. Tell us a little bit about how you engage on those 2 points with your clients.
Yeah. So I don't talk to clients about like calories. A lot of women especially, but men too, right? We come from maybe like dieting our whole lives, or restricting and counting and balancing and weighing. And that's, to me, not a fun way to eat. So I would like to focus and kind of change people's perspectives to focus more on the quality of the food that they're eating rather than the quantity. Quantity matters, of course. And we talk about like what's a serving is, but nobody wants to go through their day counting calories. So the quality of food, by that I mean like, are your animal proteins organic or grass-fed or pasture-raised? Because if they are, they're going to have more nutrients. The animal is healthier. That gets transferred to the person that's eating it. Even eggs that are like, from pasture-raised chickens that are out there eating the natural feed are higher in omega-3 fats than like factory farm eggs. So aside from the whole animal welfare issue, the animals are actually going to pass more nutrients on to you if they're, fed their natural feed and raised in the sunshine and all of those things. So that's one sort of example of quality. When produce, I like to point people toward like the Clean 15 or Dirty Dozen. Environmental Working Group puts that out every year. And that's just in terms of the amount of like pesticide residue that's found on different amounts of different types of produce. So if you are working on a budget, choosing like the Dirty Dozen as the fruits that like, okay, these are worth buying organic, because if I don't, there's a lot of pesticides on these in general, right? But like bananas, for example, are not necessarily a priority. So I get those just.
Or a melon.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah.
So I would always recommend to check out those lists. And just thinking like, you're talking about like all the ingredients on your skincare, same thing with food. I think we're all kind of have heard like, try not to buy packaged ingredients or processed food that has a huge list of ingredients. And it's just, it's all the additives, it's all the fillers, it's all the dyes and salts, and those things affect our nervous system, they affect our hormones, they affect
They end up in our blood
system. Yeah, I mean, it's literally like the whole body.
They're in our blood, people. Yeah,
it just keeps circulating through you. Yeah, so if you
can't clean all of that up every day, all the time. I mean, you can't have those kind of expectations of your body. Like, oh, I can just keep doing this, and my lymph will take care of it. It's like, if you can quote that your lymph will take care of it, then you should know better than to eat it. If you can figure out my lymph will take care of it, why are you eating that every day? Yeah,
it's true. And that's the quality, right? Like, just think about like the food that if you take a second before you eat and take breaths, this is mindful eating, right? And look at your food and smell the food and really start to pay attention to it rather than just like shoving it into your mouth between A and B. I think, like you said, it's not that complicated. Like, this is smells good. This is going to feed me and make me feel good a half an hour after I digest it, or the opposite, which is like, maybe you're just eating because that's the only thing around there and you have to, and it's, convenient and cheap. But we want to eat foods that feel like quality, like our bodies, we have to know that we're worth it. I talk to this about people a lot, right? Like, you deserve quality food. You deserve whole, fresh, colorful, nourished foods. That's what your body wants. That's what's going to make you feel good. When you're eating crap, you're probably going to feel like crap.
Yeah. And we know what crap is, even if it, but then beyond that, there's also all of that organic healthy food or the gluten-free packaged food.
Yeah.
Or all this other stuff that's really confusing, that because I don't think that the people watching and people Eat Your Way to Gorgeous in my audience, they're not really eating, they're not coming from a McDonald's
Okay.
point of view.
Yeah.
They are, but they might be eating out a lot. They might be buying a lot of packaged organic foods or these plant-based, like, you know, I found a delicious almond-based ricotta cheese. It's just made with almonds, but it's ridiculously expensive. It's by this brand called Kite Hill. Do you know Kite Hill?
Yeah.
So they make this almond ricotta cheese. It has 2 ingredients, almonds and I think lemon juice. And it's in a tiny container like this. And it's $10. So it's like, how often can you do that, right? So I'm in Trader Joe's the other day and I see, and I never fall for the plant-based foods, but that was so delicious that I thought, I need something like that. I want something like that. That's less expensive. Obviously, I can buy more on a regular basis, but that's not dairy. That's not going to be, I'm eating dairy constantly. I don't mind a little bit of dairy, but I don't want to do it all the time. Right. So I'm in Trader Joe's and I saw a plant-based cream cheese or something. And I went up and I looked and immediately, you know, and I teach my clients and my audience to read ingredients before you read anything else. You don't need to know the salt and
I
the
do the exact
content.
same thing.
Read the ingredients first. And even if you like it, then go and see what the salt and sugar is. But the first decision is going to be what's in this. Yeah. And so I'm looking at the ingredients of this stuff, this cream cheese, and I'm seeing just, you know, I had the lady read it to me at church because I didn't have my readers on. And it was like the third ingredient was modified potato starch. So I was like, okay, forget it. And I walked away. There are probably more ingredients after that, but it's like eating that every day. And we think that that's healthy because it's plant-based.
Right. Yeah.
Vegan. But it's like we have to be very mindful of these packaged foods that are or that seem healthy and they have this stuff in it that's really upsetting our digestion, contributing to migraines, contributing to fatigues. And I started reading more about modified potato starch, you know, and the some of the contraindications and side effects of modified potato starch and how, you know, so that, you know, so for this audience that is thinking they're eating healthy, those foods could possibly, they're spending a lot of money or a little money on these foods, right, that aren't really helping them. Do you see that too with your audience, that they're buying?
Yeah, I have a lot of people that want convenient foods, which is
so what do you tell them? So what do you tell them for convenient foods? How do you help them balance out having to cook all the time?
Yeah, I have a few go-to convenient foods.
Like which ones? What are some goodies? My audience.
Seeded cracker or something like that, right? Like if people want to crunch and they're like getting all these like gluten-free, weird processed cracker things. I'm like, just, I like Mary's. They're just mostly seeds, you know, something like that. Yes, you can make them yourself, but you're just looking for something in the store, quick and easy. Yeah. You know, there's some hummuses that like are going to be just olive oil, chickpeas, tahini, lemon, salt, you know, but there's a lot that have a paragraph of ingredients with canola.
So many. Trader Joe's has a good hummus that is, or it's the organic hummus, just the organic in the smaller container that is that olive oil.
Used to, their eggplant hummus also used to be olive oil, but I haven't found it lately, so I don't know if it's gone. But the organic is a good tip. Thank you. Yeah. So I mean, I agree with you. It's sometimes, but figuring out, you know, I mean, that's where like meal prep and things like that come in handy. So you're not having to cook a ton every single day, but maybe you dedicate a couple of hours, one day a week to get your basics, your, you know, quinoa, and chop up your vegetables and maybe a dressing or a sauce or something that you can drizzle on most things. Roast some vegetables. If you're eating meat, you know, maybe you roast a chicken and shred that up into your salad. So,
and like you said, it's like, this isn't about perfection.
Right.
Someone who can get 4 days out of the week eating like that, maybe you have 3 days where you're going out to lunch or you're doing certain things. I mean, that's not the end of the world.
And that's what you were saying about like, it's the small steps.
That's what you were saying, because that's one of your goals. No, I believe in that too, but that's your thing too, which I love, like taking these small steps.
Yeah. And
so
maybe,
what?
Maybe like 1 week you do one thing consistently, right? And then the next week you keep doing that one thing and you add on another one, and you, until that's consistent. And, like, you can do small steps. It's race to the finish. There is no finish, right? Like, this is, I'm sure your program is the same with the way that I try to get people to eat, is something that's sustainable, that they can continue to eat this way all the time. I know the term lifestyle is so cliche and gets thrown around all the time, but that's what it is.
Lifestyle.
Right? That you just eat now because you feel good, you look good, your body is healthy, you have energy, you're, all of those things. Why would you want to stop?
Yeah.
So it's about figuring out a way that's not so labor intensive, that's convenient enough to keep this going.
And tell us about your client, because I think his story is a great, talking about small steps and progress. Jim, is that his name, or John? Jim?
Yeah, it's Jim.
And yeah, I think that his whole, telling you like he's not going to change certain things, like I'm not going to do that, and you found a way to make that work. And he did have some progress, right? I know he's a little challenged because he's not so consistent. You wish he could be more, but he did have some progress. He told me he stopped drinking sodas, or there were some things going on with him. So tell us a little bit about Jim. Maybe we'll get on Jim, because he's sort of a positive note for people that maybe can relate to him.
Yeah. So Jim had some health issues that he believes were from medication. Just to give you a little bit of like why he came. And he also knew he wasn't eating that well, and wanted some help, but sorry about the cat. But he was pretty clear that he was going to have fast food hamburgers once a week. And that he was like a granola hippie crunchy person, right? So okay, and he's aware that like he might not see the hugest progress right away because he wasn't willing to make super, substantial changes. But okay, so the way that we're kind of working, and then he sees me off and on. It's been probably about a year. Yeah, he definitely reduced the amount of soda that he was drinking. That was kind of number one, right?
That's a big deal, you guys. Like, here's a guy that's like,
yeah,
he said he won't eat it. He's going to eat his junk food. Like, what did you say he could do it? When was his, now he's allowed, he
can do it when he wants. First, he drives around for work a lot. So
it's his lunch.
He was eating, Taco Bell, Carl's, like all of it.
Yeah. And he's still doing that for lunch. You said you got him on a healthier breakfast and dinner.
Well, the last session that we had, he was like, okay, give me some restaurants like Chipotle or like Tender Greens, Sweet Greens. He was like, give me a list of a couple of restaurants and a couple of menu items at each. So it's a compromise, right? Of course, I would love for him to make his own lunch and bring it with him. He's not about that. He's not going to do it.
He mentioned Sweet Greens and Tender Greens and not Carl's Jr.
Right. So he's making small steps.
Yes.
Right.
And now he has much soda. Wait, what was the thing about this?
Yeah. So he stopped. He barely drinks soda. But what I was going to say about soda is that I have very little like that there's like absolutely none of this in your diet, right? Like even what's life without any sugar? Have a little bit, but soda is one of the things. One of the very
list. That's like your list. That's got to go.
I'm like, yeah, get it out of there. It's soda and diet soda. And you'd be surprised. I was surprised. People drink soda, and I say that too, and give them some reasons why. And it's not that hard for them to stop drinking it. They think it's going to be, but it's actually, I always, because my question when they come back is always like, okay, well, how was it? Right? Great job getting rid of soda, but how are you? Do you miss it? Are you sad about it? And they're like, I don't really miss it.
Yeah, it's amazing what we think and then what it actually is. Yeah. Like we're like, how could I ever live without my soda? And it's like, oh, I'm doing perfectly fine without my soda.
Right. You can replace it with water or some sort of like, herbal tea or whatever. So I think we limit ourselves, right, with our beliefs. Like this is what I always do and I can't possibly change.
Yeah. Yeah. And we do limit ourselves. We limit our food choices because there's so much good food out there, but we think maybe that it's not good or it doesn't taste good or for some of us anyway, or we won't
Yeah.
like it. We just won't like it. But then we're like, oh no, that wasn't so bad after all. That was pretty delicious.
Yeah,
So it's like just
exactly.
being opening your mind a little bit to a new way. Well, I like
Totally.
how Jim came to you and said, I'm not going to stop eating fast food. And you said, well, then let's just limit it. And he did.
Yeah,
And
he
he
had.
did. It's like, that's how we have to work with people. Because we like, what are you going to tell him? Like, nope, sorry, can't work with you then. Go
Right, of
with someone else.
course.
Like, well, we got to figure out a way to work with Jim.
Yeah.
He loves his Carl Jr., then
Getting baked potatoes instead of French fries and like a side salad instead of the rolls, like he is making progress.
yes, 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 yes. And ultimately it comes up down to you, the progress that you want. It's like you could be happy with the little bit of progress you're making and keep it there, or you might want to keep leveling it up, and that's up to you. We do have the choice.
Absolutely. It is. It's a choice.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to make sure, because this is so fun and I could talk to you forever about.
Yeah, same.
I know. Oh, wait, did we talk about eating too much of the same foods?
I don't think so.
Yeah, because that's a big
Okay.
one too. And that's what I kind of learned from my migraines. I think I was eating too much of, you get in this rut of what you're cooking.
Yeah.
All of you are going to start cooking all the time, and now you're eating healthy. And then you're like, oh, I love this one thing. I think for me, it was like the basmati rice. And what was the other thing I was doing often? Oh, my coffee in the morning, I make it at home and I make my little latte, but I think like that every morning, and maybe the rice, and then just tweaking everything else. But yeah, tell me what you feel like have found. It's not necessarily you're eating unhealthy that's making you feel crappy.
Mhm.
Maybe it's just that you're not getting a variety of foods.
Right. And the diversity of foods is actually really important, especially when it comes to produce, like fruits and vegetables. Our gut really likes variety. So our bodies like routine, right? Going to bed at the same time, eating at the same time. But in terms of the nutrients, you want a wide array of different foods. So yeah, a lot of the times people, they want to know like, am I allergic to this, or should I get an allergy test? But usually the best place to start is like, what do you eat the most of? Like every single day, because your body can build sensitivities to things that it's sort of like they've been just overdone. And it might be a good food. It might be a healthy food.
That's such a good question to ask.
Yeah, yeah. And so we can also start. One of the things when people say like, well, I need that, or like you feel kind of addicted to it, that's also usually, sadly, a good place to start by reducing or removing that item for a while, because your body can kind of get like stimulated. It actually is a little bit of addiction to dairy is one of those things often. But foods that are agitating to it can feel like stimulating, and sort of like you get energy from it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so sometimes these foods, they're not necessarily something that you can't ever have again, but you've just kind of overdone it.
Right.
Your
Yeah.
body's like hit a threshold, and you just kind of have to take it out and reduce that tolerance for a bit. And then you might be able to have it back in on occasion.
Yeah, yeah. Especially during this.
Everybody's different, and you kind of have to test it. It's a little bit of a trial and error sometimes.
The elimination test.
Like
I mean, it's one of the best things people can do for themselves if they want to know what's not working for them. It's like eliminate and then add.
Yeah.
Eat or bring it back in, or eliminate and bring some new foods in. Eliminate and then 2 months later put something in. So that's
exactly. Like, you have to wipe the slate clean.
Yes.
Start over, pay attention to how the food makes you feel.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what, the more, I mean, this, right? The more colorful fruits and vegetables, the more food really in general that you're eating, not more in terms of amount, but more in terms of variety, the more variety of nutrients you're getting.
Yes.
And the less likely that you're just going to build up like 4 things every day, and then my body can't handle any more of it. So I mean, we all get in our ruts. Believe me, I eat a lot of quinoa.
Yeah.
But I try to, that's why eating seasonally is so great too, at least with the produce. We're cycling through things every couple of months and eating different fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
So it's a balancing act. And I know it can like sound like a lot, but really once you kind of like, you start small, right? And you like learn this thing and then you learn another thing. And then it's just the way that you eat. It can make huge changes in how you feel, how you
Yeah.
look,
So learning and what?
and how you look, right? Your
Yeah.
skin,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's
It's
a
a
learning.
reflection of what's going on inside. So it's huge.
Yes, yes. And then let's finish it on this. What do you tell your clients about like budget? Like how to budget for this lifestyle because it is expensive and especially now when everything is so expensive.
I
And
know,
food
right?
is really and food is really expensive and someone like me or you, we might be acclimated to forego a lot of other things because food is our priority. Like for me, I don't buy like electronics or like there's
Same.
certain things I won't do if I can't have certain food. But for others, they might have kids or a family or they're used to, whatever it is, whatever the situation is. How do you help people budget for this lifestyle? What are some little tips that you give?
Generally, when you're making your own food, it's going to be a little cheaper than if you're trying to eat the same kinds of foods out. So that's one more reason to cook. Buying like things like beans dried in bulk is generally cheaper.
Yeah, that's a good
Um,
thing. You make a big
so
old
yeah, like
yeah.
yeah, like I'll get some lentils and split mung beans and stuff from the Indian market down the street. And it's a lot of it. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it was pretty cheap. Yeah, stores. I mean, I don't shop at Erewhon. There's not one near me, but also it's very expensive and it's a tough justification for some of those things. But it doesn't have to be farmers markets, right? Like the farmers market and get a lot of the produce that you need. And then you're just kind of getting your pantry staples here and there as you need
Yes.
them from the regular grocery
And it is
stores.
less expensive at the farmer's market. People think it's more, but the produce will be less than the supermarket.
Yeah.
And you get
Yeah.
more bang for your buck. You buy beets, you get all those greens on top.
Exactly.
You
Yeah,
get,
using the whole thing.
yeah, so you have all that.
That's
And
a
then,
good point.
yeah, you just get more bang for your buck.
I think also there's a lot of people that maybe if they're newer to this lifestyle or newer to cooking, they either wasting or afraid they're going to waste food, right? So like, well, I'll buy, I go to the store and I have great intentions and I buy all this produce and then I end up throwing it away at the end of the week because it's gone bad. So that is a huge waste, obviously. But if you're going to eat the food, that it's worth spending a little bit of money. So you, again, you're going to save probably money at the other end of this by not paying for copays and prescriptions and things like that. And that's a hard sell sometimes because who knows what's going to happen in the future, but try to waste any of the food. So commit to yourself. Like I bought this package of spinach and I'm going to eat it every day. So I know I don't waste it. And if that means putting an extra handful in my smoothie or adding spinach to, my dinner tonight, even though I don't really want it, like use up the food so that you're not wasting it and wasting your money. I mean, all those tricks about like putting the herbs in a vase in the fridge, or on the countertop so that your basil doesn't go bad after 2 days, things like that. So I do talk to people about food waste too, because I think that that's part of the, but what nobody spend their money and then not use what they got. So
Yeah.
I think that helps.
And kind of like know what you're going to make when you're buying this food. Don't
that's
just
a really good suggestion.
Yeah. Don't just buy food and you go home and you're like, oh my God, like you bought all this parsley and basil, especially with herbs too, because if you don't store them right, they will go bad quickly. So it's like, if you're going to buy those bunches of herbs, like make something. If you don't know what to make, like there's an easy sauce, just throw cilantro and parsley and some basil in a blender with some lime and ginger, and you have this beautiful sauce and you can put on anything. You just blend it up, puree it. You know what I mean? Like
or put it in, like you can do that and then put it in ice cube trays, right? And freeze it.
Ice cube tray thing, yeah, for like sauces and stocks. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
so
a good tip.
I think it's worth getting the good stuff, but you got to eat it.
You have to eat it and commit to eating it. And maybe, yeah, like you said, taking small steps. So if you're going to start to eat this way and shop this way, then you don't have to buy it all if you're not going to eat it all. So just buy a few things at the farmer's market or at the grocery. You're just starting. Just get a couple of.
That's a good point. Like I'm only going to be eating at home. Think about your calendar, right?
Yeah.
Eating at home 3 nights this week. So
Yeah.
if I know that I have things where I have to go out, I only need food for 3 dinners.
Yes, 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 yes.
Don't overdo it.
Don't
Yeah.
overdo it. That's a good one. Yeah, especially if you are like working and you're hosting clients out or doing things like that or eating out. You don't need to really buy so much food. Well, Amber, thank you so much for sharing all of these gems with my audience. It's so crazy when you're on Zoom because there's a little dot where the camera is. So if I look there, or I'm looking at you. So
I'm sure I've been looking at the wrong place the whole time.
no, I don't know. I just feel like my eyes have been up there and here, but looking because I'm looking at your beautiful face, talking to you, and not looking in the little dot on the
Same.
camera. But I'm so excited for my audience to hear this also from someone else and not just from me, and to have some new perspective and just reminders. They're just reminders, you know, again, the drug interactions are huge. You know, why do you still feel crappy? Why are you still not gaining weight or losing weight? Why are you still so tired? You know, well, look at the medications you're on. You need to really look at those, because if you're not, you're missing a whole piece right there. And sipping on some of those liver teas if you are on medications, and getting your sleep in order. All these things really, really matter so that our body can serve us and do what it really wants to do, which is be our ability to function and live out here.
Yeah, it just wants to, exactly, it just wants to live.
Yes. And Amber, tell people your website if they want to get a hold of you. I know that I offer much of the same, but your scope might take them to a whole other experience where I can't. So how would someone find you, Amber?
It's Amber Marin Nutrition.
Amber Marin, M-A-R-O-N.
Is that right? Yeah. Let me make sure that's right. Yeah. MARON .com. And I'm always happy to do like a complimentary discovery call if somebody just wants to kind of chit chat, see if we're a good fit, ask me any questions about how working together works. I know that, yeah, you have a lot of overlap. So if, they just need something extra.
Yeah, you never know. And again, the scope of practice, we don't all know. I don't know everything. There might be things that you can really bring to the table that can help someone, especially with the drug interactions and with some of this, that's a big deal. I think that's a big deal.
I think I will say, like, one of my strengths is really figuring out the realistic practical steps that somebody can take, right? So it's wonderful to have all of these, like, I know what I should do, but how does that fit into my life? So some of my sessions are just sitting down and like planning things with people, and it gets really specific to them. It's very customized, like, okay, you've picking up your kids at 3 and you've got this meeting at, what can you do it for?
Nice.
People need support with that. Yeah.
All right. So
well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. And I hope you enjoyed this breakout session, and you might have another one to watch, or maybe you already went through all of them, but thanks so much for being here. Okay. Thanks, Amber.
Thanks.
Got it.
Hello, everyone. I am so happy that you're here to join me in this breakout session with Deb Cox. And Deb is a dear client who has become a dear friend at this point, because it's been many years that I've been seeing her for facials and skincare. And she has a really wonderful story that I believe so many of you that are taking this course will resonate with. She did not grow up like I did, where, I was eating super healthy and my mom, enforced this, food is medicine lifestyle. Deb grew up in a much different way and had to kind of find her way in healing her body, which is the story she'll share with us. The one advantage Deb did have and does have in this journey is she does like to cook. So it's for her, it wasn't, some of you might not even like cooking. You're like, I don't want to cook. I don't want to do any of this. And you have to get through kind of that little learning curve too. That was an advantage for Deb, but everything else, she was really kind of starting at ground zero. So hi, Deb.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm really good.
Awesome.
It's fun
Well,
to be
I'm
here.
really happy that you're here, and I'm really excited for everyone to hear your story. So I'm going to just give you the floor. Start with your story in Washington State and how you grew up, and let's just kind of go from there.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Washington State, the eastern side of the state, which is very, I grew up around pesticides, and out of my back window, you'd see crop dusters going through wheat fields. The little town I grew up in is surrounded by wheat fields. So this is the life we grew up with. My parents had a little plot, but they farmed, we grew, it was a garden. They didn't really farm. So it was a garden. So we grew up with my mom. We had vegetables. My mom cooked. So it was healthy-ish. But a lot of our growing up was also foods that came out of boxes, loads of cereal, loads of packaged macaroni and cheese, and, any kind of conventional food that you found at the inner part of grocery stores. That's what we ate, and that's what we knew. So, and cakes and sweets and treats and that kind of thing, that was normal. We went to the doctor, whatever the doctor said is what we did. That was my life. I moved to California in my late teens. I was 19, or no, actually I was 20.
Okay.
Gonna turn 21. And I lived here, and being away from home, I changed my diet a little bit. I became a vegetarian because I could, and I had my own choice for a stint. But I started getting some symptoms that in my 20s, I get bladder infections, and I thought that was just, a normal thing that happened. But then into my late 20s, it became really chronic and painful. So when I started getting these really, really bad symptoms, I went to the doctor to handle this issue, and they couldn't really help me. I did these battery of tests, horrible, all kinds of tests, and really invasive tests that were really painful.
Mm.
And the doctors at the end of this months of testing period said, we're not sure what you have. We think it might be this thing called interstitial cystitis. They didn't name it an autoimmune. They just said, we don't know what it is. And here's some medicine. Try this medicine. And at the time I said, well, what is it was a sample. And I said, well, what does the medicine do? And they said, we don't really know. And at that moment, and meanwhile, I had been crying, and it had been this horrible process. So when they told me, try this medicine, we don't know what it does, we don't know what you have, I was absolutely devastated. So at that point, I just set out to do anything I could to manage this pain experience that I was having.
Did you have any lead of what you were
Nothing.
managing?
Zero. No idea.
But you felt it was a bladder infection. That's the only thing
because those are the symptoms. And that was what the doctors had thought as well, was, okay, maybe it's an infection, maybe it's a uterine, not just uterine, but maybe it's a deeper infection, a kidney infection. So they did batteries.
What were your symptoms, Deb? Were they like pain when you urinated? Were they?
Yeah. Pain when I urinated, abdominal, pressure and pain, frequency, everything that, could have been a bladder infection. But the pain level was extreme. Couldn't sleep because it was so much pain. I think probably at the time there was some blood in my urine. But again, all of that could be a bad bladder infection. So the doctors did, all kinds of sonograms, ultrasounds, blood tests, they were putting things up into my bladder, really invasive and excruciatingly painful. I would be sobbing, and I'm not a crier. I would be sobbing at these doctor's appointments. So at the end of this, I was devastated. So then I started doing anything I could. And I've never been an outside of the box thinker with my health. I never thought, I thought acupuncture, anything holistic was, ridiculous. So I started turning to everything. I'll see the chiropractor, I'll get massage, I'll see everything, like a spiritual helper. And I was doing anything I could to try and manage this. So really just by happenstance, I started seeing an acupuncturist healer, which, you know, I'd roll my eyes when I tell people like I'm doing an acupuncture healer.
You're like, I'm in
And
LA now.
so it was like, but I'm like, oh, I'm with all these LA people doing this LA business. But you're desperate. So I'm seeing this acupuncturist healer who goes on a spiritual retreat. And the person that comes in her place was in a white jacket. So that made me feel better, like Western medicine. So I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I'll listen to what you have to say. And she came and she did acupuncture. I told her what was going on, and she goes, "You're not going to believe this, but I know a practitioner who treats exactly what you have." And I'm like, "No one even knows what I have." So, and she goes, "Trust me, you've got to talk to this woman." So I call this woman, and she's been, she's a doctor. She is a doctor of Chinese medicine, but still is credentialed, has written like all of these papers on interstitial cystitis, so she could name it for me. And she said, "I know exactly what to do." So
was it interstitial
yes, it is
interstitial
cystitis.
cystitis? So it was
Yep.
that they did kind
Yep.
of guess on that
They had no idea what
framework.
to do. And at the time they had, I think it was even considered an experimental drug. So they handed me a box sample. So it's probably off label or something.
Okay.
And so fast forward to this acupuncturist herbologist who has built her whole practice around this specific thing that she also suffered from. So she had experience from figuring out her own way through interstitial cystitis and some other issues that tied in. So the beginning with her was changing my diet. And that's how we got to where I am today, because of the beginning of her journey was, you have to change everything you've done. And moving forward, it was also enhanced by herbs and acupuncture at the time. So this was 21 years ago that I started on that journey. And then that opened my eyes to health in general, to health and wellness in general.
Wow. And that's really powerful. That's really, I can just feel you when you're like, you had all those invasive, because I am a crier and a baby at the doctor. You're like, I'm not, I am. It takes a lot. Now I've gotten better, but when I was younger, so like even having to go through something like that and then not have an answer, I feel you on that. You were telling me when we did our, kind of onboarding interview, you mentioned that your biggest sort of weakness, I guess, in your diet was sugar. You were like a sweet, like so tell us a little bit about that and what that was like, because it is addictive. You do did you have withdrawals where you did realize in this process you were actually addicted when you were, like, what was that like?
Yeah. And that was and remains the hardest part for me personally. I grew up like candy. My mother would come home and my whole family had this like Pavlovian response where you'd hear this rattling clink, 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 clink of candy being dropped into a glass bowl. And we would literally run to the kitchen. And my mom bought candy most days.
What candy? What did she buy? What did you guys?
Chewy, fruity candy. It didn't matter.
Like Starburst.
But yeah, exactly. Like Starbursts or like Juju.
Skittles.
These Skittles were my favorite. They were our favorite. Jelly beans, Jelly Bellies, So you hear the clink. And then M&Ms too. Chocolate was okay, but fruity stuff with food coloring and, the worst thing you could eat. So I've been my whole life, I've been completely addicted to sugar, and I didn't think it was an addiction. I didn't think anything of it. I thought that was just what people did. So when she told me no sugar, no sugar.
Because you kind of had to you couldn't be like, you were at a stage where you had to make kind of extreme changes. You weren't at a stage where it's like, we can do a little of this and a little of that. We had to really like, okay, so she told you none.
And that was because of the autoimmune, not because I was trying to shift into better health. So there was no moderation in the beginning. So so there was complete withdrawal. I was sobbing. I remember being at work, looking at this jar of jelly beans that I had purchased for the office. And I remember it sitting on a shelf and no one was around, and I'm sobbing because I can't eat the jelly beans. I couldn't eat the jelly beans, and I am sobbing. And that was that was the hardest thing. And to be quite honest, that took years. And she wouldn't shame me, my doctor, but she would say, yeah, you only get so much health, and you only move forward so much if you keep, abusing your system, essentially,
Yes, you kind
with
of,
these
you're like
non-food
taking 5
foods.
steps forward, but 4 back.
Well, probably 6 back. So you inch forward, but then you get, then the backward momentum was just too much. So at some point I finally heard her, and then I got rid of, I had to shift. The sugar had to go completely. Grains, for the most part, had to go.
Okay.
Acidic foods had to go.
Okay.
And again, this was extreme because I was ill, because I had a, I had an autoimmune disorder.
Yeah. And so she made these, changes to your diet and omitted certain foods. And then what started happening? So you had to get acclimated with cooking some new foods, some new recipes.
Yeah.
Did she want you eating certain foods that you weren't really familiar with? Was she like, I want you to put more of this in your diet? And you're like, what is that? Like, what were some of those foods?
Well, dark greens, she was a big fan of. I've always eaten vegetables. My mom, thankfully, I cook, and I like cooking. I've always liked cooking. And I like vegetables. I love vegetables. But specific to dark greens, spinach, lots of spinach, lots of leafy greens. I always ate salads, but actually raw vegetables, and then adding healthy fats. That was another thing. Was never an emphasis. Healthy fats were never an emphasis.
What fats did you eat growing up? Butter,
we ate everything, butters and healthy fats. We didn't eat nut butters, but butter. I always loved avocado. But that became the emphasis. So when I was trying to heal, then healthy fats became the emphasis, and adding vegetables and then lean meats, became the emphasis. I've never been a huge meat fan, but cooking with, chicken breasts, and always sourcing organic. That's the other thing that became another thing that she would talk about. Granted, this was 20 years ago. It's much more bigger emphasis now. But she would talk about, find the healthiest foods you can find, buy organic when you can buy organic, always opt for certain foods, always need to be organic in her mind. Meat being one. She's a big fan of healthy organic meats, sustainable, and same with certain vegetables and fruits. And the other thing was clean water. That was like
you mentioned that. You mentioned were you drinking tap water? Because you mentioned the clean water when we chatted. Like, what were you drinking before that was so different?
Well, bottled water out of plastic. So also no plastics, because they leach. And was I drinking tap water? I think I was filtering water or drinking plastic bottle waters. And at the time, I don't even remember. I think at the time, the first thing she told me was spring water instead of like Dasani or whatever. I don't remember what they were making then. So if you were going to drink bottled water, make sure that it is spring water. And if you had to drink tap water, she wanted a minimum of it filtered somehow. Even a Brita filter or something was better than straight out of the tap. Now, in the last 15 years of seeing her recommendation, if I can, are you fine with me saying labels and brands and all that?
Yeah. Do you do like Mountain Valley water?
Mountain Valley. Yeah, because she liked it out of glass, and she liked where it was sourced, and it's spring water and minerals are.
What about the water stores where you go in and you can get the alkaline water?
Better. Yeah, better. That was not her first recommendation, but definitely better. The other thing is the Berkey filters. Those are really, really, I think, is that what it's called? Berkey? Yeah.
The ones that are rocks and everything?
They're big stainless steel containers that have their own special filtration systems, and they're really pretty terrific. I have that as my backup plan, but we still do Mountain Valley water. That's just
got it.
Yeah. And so those are the things.
Awesome. Wow. And you said that the water was a big deal for you yesterday, but you also said that you became a vegetarian when you moved here. So when she wanted you to eat some meats, how did you feel about that? Was that like,
Well, okay, how did
Or
that
was
go?
it like, this is my medicine, like I have to do this, she wants me to do this and I'm keeping it minimal? Like,
Well, yeah, no, for at the time it was hard. It was hard. And I've bounced around that a couple of times and I've talked to her about that a couple of times because I was a vegetarian for a chunk of time. And then she did want me to put in, you know, meat a little bit more, at least a little bit more meat, lean like chicken breast and fish. And then I tried to be a vegan for a stretch too, which was really unsuccessful again
yeah,
for me, and my autoimmune. She is a huge animal activist, my doctor, but she said, you know, out of my whole practice, I have literally never had a person be successful with being a vegan. It just does not work. So she's always going to advocate for at least small amounts of meat, bison, lean, I forget, but at least even lean red meat, occasionally fish, very clean source chicken, and turkey and poultry. But yeah, she really does advocate for a little bit of
a little bit.
clean meat.
Yeah,
So I wasn't a fan for for a lot of different reasons, but
yeah.
my body just did not respond well to not having some kind of a protein source.
So you have all this pain, you're going through all this, you meet her, she has you take certain things out of your diet, puts things in your diet, you're now cooking some new foods. What starts to change for you? What benefits do you start to notice, and how long did you feel like it took for you to start to just at least not have that kind of pain in your sleep? You were saying you were feeling
Yep.
pain when you were sleeping. Like,
Yep.
what started to happen? And if you have like a little bit, if you can remember the timeline on that, like how long?
Yeah. I think the timeline, so to get out of extreme pain was, looking back at the time, it felt like forever, but looking back, it was relatively quickly. So I think between like 2 weeks to a month, when I had been removing all of these things, the pain changed. So after like 4 to 6 weeks, the pain was
Wow.
significantly different.
And you had the
I
pain for how long?
Well, the extreme
LA.
pain was probably like between 2 to 3 months
Got it. Okay.
because the process of trying to figure it out took forever
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
didn't know what
yeah,
to
exactly.
do. Yeah, probably 2 to 3 months. I'd been having, you know, that had been a chronic thing though. I'd been getting bladder infections and that had been happening for years, I assume.
Excuse me. Yeah.
Bless you. So for years, so to get out of the chronic pain was, yeah, probably, you know, 4 to 6 weeks. And then after that, then things felt so different. And that was probably the biggest turning point, was when I know that I can be responsible for my health, and that I personally can change my health myself. That's when I started going, oh, I don't have to rely on the rest of the world to tell me what to do, a doctor, a blah, 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 blah. Not to say that I don't have doctors, because of course I still do, and I rely on them for certain things. But in terms of, once I start eating differently, if I
I don't know what's going on. Can
the
you hear me
candy
okay?
and the
Oh, there.
food coloring and the junk, I'm not getting the headaches that I used to get. I could also wheat. When I took gluten out,
Are you there? You can hear me okay.
can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yeah, I think it was just more my, I don't know whose connection, mine or yours, but can you just say again, you mentioned something about dyes and food coloring, because that was what
Yes.
was frozen a little bit. Are you
Okay. Is it
okay.
stable now?
It is now.
Okay. I'll talk fast. No, I'm kidding. So yes, the food coloring. So once I could kind of be the chemist and go, oh yeah, I just ate something with food coloring in it. I feel terrible. I
Mm.
get a headache. My stomach's all messed up. My bladder's burning. Then that's when I started going, oh, well, then the reverse is true. I can be responsible for what I eat. And when I eat better, I feel better. So when that correlation happened, like, it gives you so much more power in your own life. So then I didn't feel so, you know, connected to a doctor or somebody else to tell me what to do. Now, of course, like I said, of course, I still have doctors and I rely on them when I need them. But in this way, I know I keep my diet clean. I put the other thing that we didn't really talk about is topical things. So lotions and the things I put on my body, the things I clean with, I'm such a sensitive person that I have to be so clean in what I do.
Yeah.
And, there's a response. If I use something, I know very quickly, okay, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. If I eat something, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, it's really listening to your body. In Ayurveda, that's one of the causative factors for disease, prajnapadada, when you're not listening to that internal wisdom that's saying, I shouldn't have done that. Like you said, it's like, but you still keep doing it. I shouldn't eat that, but you just eat it anyway. Oh, I'll just eat it this one last time or one more time. But you've been telling yourself for maybe months, like not to eat that. Like there is no one more time. You have to really honor that and listen to that, because that's the guidance that is keeping us on this path of wellness, is that compass,
Absolutely.
listening to that. And then let me ask you one question, because there might be some people, on a budget that are watching this, and, being well can be expensive, right? It's an expensive, but it doesn't have to be. And especially if you are resourceful and you plan accordingly. Sorry, I feel like I'm gonna cough. So when you were in LA, this was like before you were married, right? And before you had kids, and you were a single woman, and I know you came here to be an actress. Like, what were any challenges you had, or what can you recommend to anyone that maybe is budgeting for this lifestyle, and how maybe you were able to make that work? And especially now that everything is so expensive, it's way more expensive. Everything is. Do you have any little tips for people of what they can do?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I don't think it's an all or nothing proposition. You don't have to do everything organic and everything, I don't believe in that myself. I think inching towards that is the way to go. So even if that means, you can't buy the expensive organic chicken every time you have chicken, if you could add that once a week, that's going to tip the scale. If you can, because I was absolutely broke when I was first starting this. So I was meal prepping. I was preparing. I would make a big pot of beans and I would put that in the refrigerator, and I would cut up lettuce and put that in a Tupperware. And then that would be like, that was 6 meals a day. Six, not a day, 6 meals a week for me. And then if I'd make a little chicken something, then I'd put it in the refrigerator. And that was my lunches that I would take. So I knew the things that I could eat and that would keep me safe. And I did my best. And like I said, I didn't have the Mountain Valley water, but I bought a Brita filter, and that tips the scale, I think.
Yeah.
You do the
All
things
these
you
little
can.
things that add up.
They add up for sure.
Yes. And where are you now, Deb? Like, so now it's been what, 15 years you said, or 17 years?
21 years.
And do you feel deprived? Do you feel deprived with food? Do you feel like, no, I got this. I enjoy what I eat. What do you do for a sweet treat now?
Yes. So do I feel deprived? Probably yes. I have my moments. I'd love to tell you I'm a success story. I am never deprived. No, that's not how it is. But for the most part, my health is so much different, and it's that control factor that I can control my health more, and I get it now. So I still have my sweet wants. I can get myself in trouble if I think I told you I had a piece of cake the other day. It didn't work for me. I suffered for a week.
Wow.
Because I had this cake. What I do when I'm on track and I'm at my best, my sweet treat is I do a nut butter, like almond butter, with a little bit of maple syrup, a little bit of vanilla, and chocolate. I put cacao in there, and then these really healthy sourced chocolate chips that have a little, only sweetened with maple syrup, and I think there's like 4 ingredients. So I mix that together and freeze them and have these little yummy little balls, but I can only do that when I am really healthy and balanced.
Really good. Yeah.
Otherwise it sets me off. That's probably not most people's systems, but mine's very sensitive. So the truth is, it's management for me, and I just have to, that's just my life. I'm going to have to manage this.
And because
it's a million times better than that.
What? Sorry.
It's a million times better than in my
Yes,
20s.
it sounds like it.
It is.
Oh my God. And because you're a mom now and you have 2 boys and you have a husband, and because I'm sure there are moms on here listening, like, how am I going to eat like this? And I got to cook for them. And do they just eat what you eat? Are you just like, we're all eating, this is what we're all
Yeah, pretty much. So then I just make sure what I'm making is
Yummy.
healthy and I can eat it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll
And
make,
then the sweet treats, they can have that on their own if they want that.
yeah,
That's just the
yeah.
one thing.
Because I give them the side eye and because I don't want them eating sugar and junk. So I've probably been a little bit overbearing in that area.
Yeah.
But yeah, they get a little bit of junk, just nothing like I grew up eating. Nothing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
And the other thing I didn't mention though that I
what?
think is a big problem was hormones. Like hormones,
Oh,
you get
yes.
to a certain age and our hormones really can wreak havoc on our system. So that's another thing that I think we all have to mitigate.
And you're
Well, not
noticing
we
that
all, but
now? Like you
oh,
had
for
like
sure.
a good
Yeah.
period and then now
Yeah.
you're kind of back in this other
Yeah.
period because of hormones?
I think so, definitely. So then I just have to be more aware, like the healthy fats and the things that I just definitely can't do. And it is that awareness piece. So when I'm on my game, I'm doing great. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And any last words? Any last little, if you have any last words you want to share with anyone?
I wish I had.
Keep them inspired. You don't have to. You've really offered so much inspiration. I think your story can really, because I think there are a lot of people out here that don't feel good. And this, changing your diet isn't the end all be all, right? And I don't expect, and I don't want people to think that it is, but what it is that next step into leveling yourself up to feel better while maybe you're getting the diagnostics or working with your wellness practitioner. You're going to have to change your diet eventually. And especially if you are eating from, boxes and bags and frozen food, you eat at restaurants a lot, you're eating that food the majority of the time, you are going to have to change your diet and you will feel better. You will, and will transform. You will transform your body's response to life and to the elements. So, and that could be the end all be all for some people, For some people it is, for you, I know you have your therapies and your herbs and other things that come into practice. How much would you say the food plays a role? If you on a scale of 1 to 10 with the Chinese medicine therapies and the herbs and the acupuncture, where would you put your diet in your healing?
10. Yeah, it's the most important thing for sure. It's the thing that changed the most for me, that when I changed, I saw the result. It is the number one most important thing is what I put into my body. But I guess the thing that I do really want to say is it is not an all or nothing proposition. I think that was the most important part is one, no shame. Like I would shame myself. So if you take shame out of the game, like this isn't about like you're a good or bad person. It's about knowing what your body needs and then doing the best you can to get to some more healthy options. And that creates momentum. It creates more momentum. And when you feel better, you will do better. When you feel better, you're going to make some different choices. It feeds upon itself.
Yes.
We just do our best. Let's do our best. And support each other in that and support each other too. Right? Find your community that helps you do this.
That's really important. Yeah. One of my other guests mentioned the importance of community when she was and support when she was making a big change, because, if you don't have that, it's hard to stay on track sometimes, or you don't know what you're doing. Who was well, you had her, you had your Chinese medicine. Yeah.
That's who it was. And then I did find other like-minded people along the way.
You're in LA.
Yeah. But if you have a certain language, but not because you want to posture and be the person who only eats organic, that's not it. It's because you want wellness. Yeah. You want
that's
wellness.
How we met,
It is how we met.
Attracted us,
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. All right, Deb. Well, thank you so much. And we'll end it here. It was really powerful. And thank you everyone for watching this breakout session. I hope you feel inspired and motivated to just start to inch your way toward, cooking some new foods, opening yourself up, listening to your intuition, what's not working for you, what you shouldn't be eating. You know what that is. No one can tell you that, and no one will. Your doctor's not going to break it down for you. So hopefully this will inspire you a little bit to do that. Okay, so thanks so much. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Deb.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.